Blog Talk Radio.
Are you ready? The champ is here! It's just a man! Give me a hell yeah! What the Rock is cooking? To be the man, you have to be the man! Big bubble pump! And you hooked up! Holla! At the end of woo, woo, woo! Cup of coffee in the big game.
It's Sunday, and you know what that means, folks. It's time for the latest edition of Working the Marks here, courtesy of Fancast Media. I am New Jersey's premier award-winning journalist, the Professor, Fernando Uribe, and he is my amazing co-host here. Ladies and gentlemen, I am proud to introduce to you today the VCR superstar, Vincent Kennedy Rivera, here as we bring you Working the Marks on this Easter Sunday. Our Lord has risen, folks. Happy Easter to all my fine Catholics and Christians out there today on this Easter Sunday. What's up, VCR?
Happy Passover to all our Jewish friends out there, too, as well. Yeah, it's Kennedy with the C. I wanted to actually make a major announcement on the show this week. I'm all about big announcements. Obviously, you know, the business has been about big announcements lately. And we're not having a draft here on Working the Marks, even though if there was a draft, I know I'd be number one in your hearts and on the board. But I wanted to let you guys know that I will be leaving the show. Patrick Rivera is going to be leaving the show, but in his place, none other than my alter ego, Vincent Kennedy Rivera, Kennedy with this C. I'm just so happy to be here. Call me Vince or call me Mr. Rivera. I might even change it to Mick Rivera. I don't know. You know what I'm saying? So we'll see. We'll see how things work out. But happy to be back with you. And you're looking a little cooler today, Professor. At least you don't have some lame duck company, with a bunch of undercard J Brones or, the Incredible Shrinking Man's T-shirt. You know, at least you got the wolf pack up, baby. So
Hey,
I'm feeling it. I'm feeling it today.
Always. And folks, again, check us out on our great social media there. Obviously at working_the_marks. Without a doubt, also on Twitter. Check us out on our YouTube page. Shout out to our amazing executive producer, Dee Rotten. Again, I want to give his government.
That's his fucking title now, executive producer.
Well, I would say yes. I mean, certainly, well, the good stuff he does with cutting our reels, making the show happen. Again, folks, shout out to Fancast Media for also sponsoring the program. But again, a lot of what we do here every week would not be possible without our amazing executive producer, Dee Rotten. So, right. Dee, bro, God bless you. And again, happy Easter to you, bro.
Yeah, Dee, thanks a lot. We appreciate you. Our sponsors appreciate you on the show here, especially Fernando's favorite beer, Bud Light. They really, really appreciate what we do here. So,
well, I haven't drank Bud Light. You know, it's not really. It's kind of fake beer, but I guess
is it fake beer?
It's like fake beer, but
it's
I guess
Kid Rock's favorite beer.
What's that?
It's Kid Rock's favorite beer.
Well, hey, listen, last night. Speaking of Kid Rock, wasn't that a great image there of seeing Mike Tyson, Kid Rock, the 45th president, Dana White, all sit in the front row enjoying
that was Dana White?
That was a picture, bro.
That was Dana? I thought that was Joe Rogan.
That was Dana White with the former president, with Kid Rock. And
same person, basically. I mean, Dana White and Joe Rogan.
Let me tell you something. I would love to party with those four guys. Imagine the shit.
I bet you would. Until you get arrested for something. They'll blame you, though, because Mike's powerful. You'll be the fall guy. They'll be like, the brown guy made me do it, So
that Fernand guy.
Fernand.
You know what I'm saying? But folks, here, we appreciate you tuning in here. A lot to unpackage here. Obviously, WrestleMania 39 is in the rearview mirror. We're looking forward to WrestleMania 40 next April in the shithole of these United States, Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. But a long way to go before we get to Philadelphia, as WrestleMania 39 set all these amazing records, ladies and gentlemen, metrics with social media views, gate, merch sales. It was unbelievable. And to no one's surprise, again, if you had a chance to watch the press conference last Sunday after WrestleMania 39, after the tribal chief, the head of the table, the GOAT, as far as I'm concerned, there 945 days in counting, as you can see there, folks. Roman Reigns is still the undisputed WWE Universal Champion. listen, Triple H, Paul Levesque laid it out for everybody that WWE is doing well business-wise. And as we start off with our top stories this week, obviously the biggest story, VCR, is the sale of WWE to Endeavor and ultimately merging UFC and WWE into one corporate entity. Great interview by Vince McMahon. Not a fan of that Gomez Adams mustache. I mean, between you, Bobby Fish, and Vince McMahon, I mean, I want to poll D. Put a poll out there. Who's got the worst mustache between those three? I'd really be interested to see what the poll results would be. But
what happened to your beard, man? Where did it go?
Well, I had to go in for some new headshots with the studio for Hudson Media Group, and the executive producer was like, "Listen, Princess, we need your clean shaven, and we need your pretty face for a headshot." So I was like, "Okay, that's fine."
It made you look tough, man. You know, the beard. It made you look
tough. I'm still tough. I'm not just pretty. I'm also tough too. So.
Oh yeah, okay. I seen you squash a few grapes. Yeah,
there you go.
And blueberries. You know, you crushed the blueberries.
But VCR, obviously, bro, biggest news this week. Obviously, that merger, a $21 billion sale. Ultimately, I think is what this is going to be worth.
Yeah.
What were your thoughts when you saw this?
Well, obviously, I thought it was an amazing mustache. I think it's probably the most important mustache in the business right now. I was blown away by it, as well as a friend of mine, CC, on drums. He absolutely loved it. Many tweets were shared. I think, you know, he needs to go to one of the poppies backstage so that they can fix it and kind of trim it up. You know, I got a little Vince going on here, but that's an honor of the GOAT. But I'm going to go to the poppies. I'm going to get the poppies to straighten it out for me and all that stuff. Obviously, I think the hair dye was a little too much, especially with the eyebrows and stuff like that. I mean, who are you fooling? You know, you're not fooling anybody. You're old as fuck and everybody knows it. But overall, you know, just an amazing mustache. $21 billion. I don't know. I don't know if it's that expensive, but it's certainly a high profile mustache. As far as the sale of the company goes, I think it's great, man. I think everybody wins here. I don't think WWE is losing anything at all. I think on the contrary, everything's going to kind of stay the same for them. And, you know, similarly to what they've done with UFC, they haven't really changed too much of what makes it appealing to the fans and to their base. And I really don't expect anything different on the WWE side of things. What really intrigues me here is the crossover element and the potential crossover possibilities. I mean, who wouldn't want to see Conor McGregor in the ring, you know, talking shit to Paul Heyman? Who wouldn't want to see John Bones Jones and Roman Reigns lock it up? You know, Daniel Cormier and Brock Lesnar. I mean, a variety of different wrestlers. So what I think, too, is this also opens up a lot of possibilities for a lot of these fighters who at the end of their careers, what are they really going to do? They're going to go into commentating. They're going to be, you know, maybe journalists or commentators in some regard there. Now they have an option to get into pro wrestling, and they have an option to do that and to make themselves an attraction and to add to the overall product that they have going on there in WWE. So I think this is win-win for everybody involved. And wow, man, hats off to Vince, hats off to everybody, man. I mean, like, they made off like fucking bandits here, you know?
No, definitely. And I think it's important for our audience to understand this, because I think that, again, it'll sort of segue into a lot of the hoopla that followed after the CNBC interview where Vince and Ari Emanuel, the Endeavor and new company CEO.
Hey, Fred, can I ask you a question? Because I know you're a big fan of these shows, but is he the guy that they based Ari Gold on Entourage off of? Because that's what I had heard. I had heard that from a pal of mine.
I read the same thing. I don't know for sure. I mean, probably I might have to just do a quick Google search on that and maybe do a little more in-depth research. But I know I did read this. I did hear the same thing you did. But what's interesting, though, Pat, obviously it's going to segue into what we're going to talk about next, obviously, is with this merger, what does it mean in terms of Vince McMahon and his presence within WWE? Again, a lot of conversation, and we'll get to into the rating later, because we know that, you know, the Raw after Mania is always probably one of the most watched episodes of Monday Night Raw every calendar year, right? And despite it doing a 2.26, which was still pretty high, considering the fact that it had been in the 1.7s, 1.8s for many weeks, even before Mania, there was a lot of speculation about what this means for Vince. And I think, you know, shout out to Dee Rotten, again, our great executive producer, for sending this out on our group chat there. And by the way, Dee, if you can stream this episode, maybe get it up on the chat there, that'd be great too, as we're live. It's interesting because here's the way the management looks now. considering the merger. Now, Ari Emanuel obviously is the Endeavor and the new company CEO, NewCo. Vince McMahon will be the NewCo executive chairman, and you'll be like, Fernando, what is this, semantics? But I'll tell you why that's important. Language is important here. Then Mark Shapiro is the Endeavor and NewCo president and the COO. Jason Lublin is the Endeavor CFO, the chief financial officer. Andrew Schleimer is the NewCo CFO. Dana White remains as UFC president. Lawrence Epstein remains the UFC COO. And Nick Khan remains the WWE president. Now, you're probably wondering, Fernando, why'd you just give us a whole roster list of why this entire corporate structure? And the reason it's important is because, again, WWE is going to remain a publicly traded company. Okay. And again, I did a little research here, and again, I don't want to step on some of my classmates' toes who are actual business school professors, but you don't need a business degree to know this. That again, when you look at the corporate structure in a publicly traded company, if you're going to change the structure, if you're going to change titles and change the hierarchy of control and power, then that has to be made public. But if you're not going to be changing the inner structure and it's remaining the same, right, then there's nothing to report. So vis-a-vis, again, in layman's terms, nothing has changed within the hierarchy of WWE. Nick Khan remains the president of WWE, okay, which again handles a lot of the live events, coordinating for advertising and sponsorship. So when WWE and all their advertising deals are up for grabs, Nick Khan is in the room negotiating these deals. Right. Another important factor is that what else did not change within the structure of WWE is that Paul Levesque remains the CCO, the chief content officer. So again, in layman's terms, what you're seeing being booked on Raw, SmackDown, to some extent maybe NXT, even though Michael Hickenbottom is executive vice president there of content. Right?
This guy went shoot with the fucking name on Shawn Michaels. Right? I love it. That's hilarious.
This is the thing. So I think after this merger was announced, obviously all the speculation, and we saw all the Mark podcasts, all the Mark journalists, right? And talking about, well, what does this mean? Is Vince back in control? Vince owns the company still. So Vince can sit in the locker room having a beer, and he can do that. Again, it's his company. Now, again, Paul Levesque is running creative. That hasn't changed. If it did change, where Vince is handling creative, then within a corporate structure, it's a publicly traded company, that has to be made public in writing. That hasn't happened. So a lot of the speculation, Pat, and all the controversy, and everyone's paranoid. Oh my God, Vince is booking. Look how bad Raw was. Vince wasn't booking Friday. Look how good SmackDown was. That's just not the case.
No, Fern, and you know what? I gotta say, I'm glad that you're mentioning that, because this is business procedure, I guess, or standard business practices, if you will, right? This is a billion-dollar corporation, man. Okay, they're not gonna do something like that and like kayfabe it to the world. Like, well, we're gonna tell them that Paul's in charge, but it's actually Vince. Like, no, that's not what they're gonna fucking do. If stuff like that changes, they're gonna announce it. They have to announce it to their shareholders, and they have to put out a press release.
And Pat, I'm sorry to cut you off. I'll let you finish.
No worries.
The other dynamic that's important is, again, a lot of the Mark podcasts, the journalists ran with a simple sentence that Vince McMahon said during the CNBC interview, which again, folks, you can check out. Really interesting interview. Again, I watch the market a lot. I love watching CNBC, Fox Business too, is when he openly said, well, I'm going to have input, obviously, in some of the bigger storylines, but understand that folks, Paul Levesque is still the CCO. He wasn't removed from that position. He's still running creative. So for all intents and purposes, when it comes down to the final say about what happens with booking, and not booking on 2K, WWE on my PlayStation behind me, but actual booking, a run sheet, and also the creative storylines, like Paul Levesque still has to say. So again, unfortunately, whether Vince said that or not, to either entice the marks and bait them, that remains to be seen. But again, that's what happened this week, where their narrative got hijacked with, hey, Vince said this on CNBC, where he's going to have some input. That's it. Oh, it's over. Paul Levesque is useless. He's just sitting in Gorilla playing, mahjong on his phone. And like, he's not doing anything. That's not the case. And again, listen, I think you know how critical I am of some booking, again, and as a smart, but understand that from a corporate structure, folks, like, Vince does not have the title of CCO. He doesn't have it because it's not there in writing. So I'm sorry, Pat. I just want to make sure our audience.
No. I appreciate that, because you know what? I think you're, and it's good that we're doing this. It's good that we're talking about this, because we're simplifying it. We're breaking it down for people that don't really understand, that got all hopped up on Dave Meltzer's BS that was put out there. You know what I'm saying? I think it's important that we kind of clarify what the situation is. I also would like to say too that I think that there's a huge problem amongst the Mark community that they don't want to admit that Triple H books things that they don't like. We have to understand that this is a global product. This is a variety show, essentially. And there's people that are going to want to see this for different things. There were people that were really interested in Omos and Lesnar. There was people that were really interested in Cody and Roman. There was people that were interested in Gunther versus Sheamus versus Drew, because that's the brand of wrestling that they like. So everybody is kind of tickled in their belly, so to speak, when they watch this. You know what I'm saying? Because there's a little bit of something for everybody. He's going to book things that the Marks aren't going to like, because the way NXT is presented and the way that the main roster is presented are two different things. The NXT is all about putting people out there. It's all about it's more so catered to the Mark audience, right? It's more so catered to the ROH fans. And that's kind of what they did. And if you look at some of their booking and their champions, Adam Cole, I mean, when you think of ROH, that's one of the biggest names in that company's history. It jumps out, and that was a guy who had a big run there, who had a stable there, who was the champion, who delivered some great matches. Unfortunately, the ratings weren't there, but he had great matches with a lot of workers. And, that's what that audience was catered towards. And that's what that product was catered towards. So he was going to book things that they were going to like, because that product is for them. With Raw and SmackDown, it's different, because you're not just appealing to the hardcores. You're appealing to the women and children, the families. You're appealing to the casuals. You're appealing to the people that just tune in because they're like, oh shit, wrestling's on. Let me fucking give it a gander and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. So there's going to be a lot of things that he does that people don't like. But this is the thing that boggles me the most, right? Dave Meltzer's the guy who put this out. Sean Ross Sapp are the guys that put this out. And look, no disrespect to them. I think that, they do what they do. They hustle. They've earned their titles. You know what I'm saying? Like
even Keller, though. But Pat, even Keller,
even Keller.
And that's disappointing, because Wade Keller, I would think, was still probably one of the few reliable, credible sources out there. And even he jumped into the pool.
But you know what it is, Fern? I think they all follow the trend. They all follow whatever's trending at the moment. And that was a big headline that was trending at the moment. Yeah. And the problem is a lot of these guys don't have the time to wait and see. They kind of have to jump so that they can get some clicks, so that they can get views, so that they can keep the traffic up, They don't want to just wait and see what happens. And Meltzer's reporting that Mr. McMahon was sitting in Gorilla, and, he had a headset on, and he's telling people what to do and all this stuff. That wasn't even confirmed by anybody.
Yeah.
Okay. It was not confirmed by anybody at all. And Vince was there WrestleMania weekend because he was selling the fucking company, and it's the company's flagship show. You know what I'm saying? It's their biggest show of the year. Of course he's going to fucking be there. He was there Monday too. But also, from what we understand, and Mia Yim tweeted out that there was a lot of people that were sent home. The talent hadn't been with their family. They hadn't been home in a week, and they were given time after WrestleMania to rest up. So that's why the roster was so thin. That's why there were so many rewrites. There was a lot of people that were banged up, that were beat up. Drew McIntyre's another guy. Oh, Drew's leaving. He was taken off of SmackDown. His contract wasn't meeting what he wanted, blah, blah, blah. Dude's injured, man. He's injured right now. I'm pretty sure that they're going to figure it out when the time comes to figure it out. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, totally, yeah.
But if anything, I just want to say, just in closing here, that a lot of people are believing a lot of the wrong people on the internet and are running with it. And this is also a lot of this, anti-Vince narrative and this boogeyman thing that Marks have with Vince, where they fucking hate him for whatever reason. And, they want to find a reason to say that the product is bad because of him, but he doesn't really have anything to do with it. Now, is he going to say, hey, Paul, this is what I think about this, like for a WrestleMania main event or a SummerSlam main event? Yeah, I'm sure he's going to give his input. But at the end of the day, and from what we heard out of Triple H's mouth, that decision rests with him, okay? He's the one who makes that call. Does he get input from other people? I'm sure. I'm sure. But at the end of the day, he's going to make that call. So for all you people out there that are believing that Vince is back, Vince is not back. It's still Triple H's show. And SmackDown proved that it's still Triple H's show because that was a very Triple H centric program.
Yeah, and also too, again, Bruce Pritchard's still working in production. He's still working in creative with Paul. So again, the idea that, you know, and again, there's been some things over the years, but by and large, 90% of what Bruce Pritchard's helped put out there in terms of creative ideas has gotten over, and it's made money. It's so gay. You know what I'm saying? Like, you know, I know that a lot of people give Kevin Dunn a lot of grief about what Kevin Dunn represents, but the truth is that when it comes to storytelling, when it comes to the booking, when it comes to the creative, the writing, I mean, obviously Paul is leading the way there. Paul's the one that is delegating and it's final call. And it's funny because it's like, I know you brought to my attention off the air today about the recent episode of Keeping It 100 with Conan and Disco Inferno. They even talked about like, hey, listen, let's set the record straight about these Mark podcasts about Vince and this and that. Like, oh, well, Cody lost to teach him a lesson. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. You're going to spend, because again, and I actually looked this up, I think Cody's actually one of the top 5 wage earners in the WWE in terms of the contract, right? Like the idea that Vince flew out to Atlanta, okay, to personally go to Cody's house, okay, to meet with him, to sit down, meet with Brandy, okay, and offer him the money he did to jump ship last spring to build this ridiculously long, and I don't mean ridiculous like inflammatory or, you know, but just like this ridiculously long storyline about, you know, what the mission is, about the story and everything, you know, coming back in, he got injured, put on 3 hell of a magnificent matches with Seth Rollins last year, got injured, and then he came back at the Rumble. He won the Rumble, the whole storyline. Do you think that they went to all this trouble to, first of all, pay him? I think he's making I could be wrong. He's making somewhere between, I think, 3 and change, maybe 4. It's a lot of money. Are you going to pay a guy that much money and make sure that he gets a good cut of his royalty, of his merch, which, by the way, is still one of the biggest merch sellers? You think they're going to do all that to teach him a lesson? It's nonsense. But that's the narrative being permeated by Sapp, by Meltzer, by JD Covalent, you know, a local guy in New York that does a Mark podcast too. It just seems like Vince is a good businessman. I mean, I always like his decisions, but creatively. But as a businessman, there's no arguing. Like the body of work is there. He's a smart businessman. You don't go to all this trouble to, you know, the language this week, Pat. Oh, you know, they jobbed Cody out. How is it jobbing out Cody?
No,
it's a bad term to use.
No, man, they're telling a story here, man. You know what I'm saying? They're continuing a longer story, and you know what? Like everything thus far has been predictable, right? You know, Cody was going to come in at WrestleMania, right? You assumed he was going to beat Rollins. He did, right? And then, okay, well, Rollins is going to split. They're going to do the 50-50 booking. Then he beats him 2 more times, right? Then you're like, okay, Cody's coming back at the Rumble. Cody's going to win the Rumble, right? Cody won the Rumble. You know, now Cody is taking on Roman. He's looking good. They're having all these good segments. They're talking great. This is the one thing that was unpredictable. And I think a good chunk of us, even yourself included, thought that this would be Cody's moment. You know what I'm saying? I think we all thought that this was going to be it. But they didn't. And they kept it going longer.
It was a swerve. Let's be honest. They all swerved us because
they swerved everybody, not just fans, but people that have been in the business, people that have been in booking committees. Like they understood, you know what I'm saying? Like that this is what was going to happen, and they swerved us all. And hats off to them, man. And it's not the worst thing in the world to have that title on Roman.
Listen, and we'll get to our WrestleMania results, and we'll sort of like the good and bad of Mania. I mean, I called this weeks ago when we did our preview. Like I just had the sense that there's a merchandising gold mine, you know, on the horizon. It is the 1,000 days. Pretty soon he'll eclipse Pedro Morales. Maybe he'll get to 1,500 days. Dude, for all we know, he could headline next year's WrestleMania in Philadelphia. Now, again, let's put it in perspective here. I mean, we've seen some numbers online. I mean, to eclipse Bruno Sammartino's record, I mean, he would have to be headlining WrestleMania in 2028. I mean, that's a long time from now. I don't think, again, I could be wrong. I don't think that's where they're heading with this, but I could be wrong. Who knows? I think I was holding on to hope that Roman was going to win. That was my guess. I think Paul swerved all of us because, again, it was not that it was becoming predictable, but it was sort of like leaning towards like, oh man, it's becoming obvious. Cody's going to win. Cody didn't win. Now, obviously, he got jumped by Brock Lesnar on Monday. And this is where the marks online, Pat, kind of go off into a tantrum. Like, oh, they're recycling 2012 again. Cena lost to Rock, and now, you know, Cody's gonna have to go through a whole year.
They're
of
the only people that make this connection, though. You realize that, right?
Yeah.
Nobody that's booking this shit, nobody that's doing, well, we're gonna book him like Cena in 2012. They don't fucking say that. They're just like, hey, okay, we're not gonna make this predictable. Cody, we're gonna keep you away from the title until we decide to put you back into the title picture. Because remember, he said rematch, right? And Paul named all these other shows, but he didn't say WrestleMania, right? So maybe it's next year in Philadelphia. We leave the rematch thing kind of open-ended now. That's on to be continued, him and Roman. You know what I'm saying?
And also, too, Cody didn't lose clean, per se. So
he didn't lose clean. He still looks strong. More importantly, now, he's only going to look stronger because you're taking the sympathetic white meat babyface and you're putting him in there with a fucking monster like Brock Lesnar. So when he beats Brock Lesnar, that's going to mean a lot. And it's going to look pretty serious because this is a guy who kicked Roman's ass quite a lot. You know what I'm saying? Quite a lot. Yeah. So they're building this story further and further. And this notion that they're going to take away from the moment or anything like that. Did Cody look any less over to you on Monday when he came out for that segment?
No, he didn't. And again, I think that there's the dynamic again that he didn't lose cleanly. I think that adds to the allure of like this of the storyline. Like, hey, Cody didn't lose. He didn't. He even incorporated that into his into the promo. He was like, hey, I had you. You know, again, that element of like, I had you, you were vulnerable. Again, that adds to the intrigue of why you can keep going. Where Cody, now again, the marks just run with the narrative about, oh, well, just recycling 2012 and what happened to Cena. And look what happened to Cena the following year. He won at one of the more lackluster manias, which we've talked about, at least in my opinion. But again, there's plenty to tell with the story, though, Pat. And I think you hit it on the head. You don't have to have him in the title picture right now. You can have him kind of not distracted per se, but more so like, hey, he's got other business to attend to. And let's be honest, it's not like Roman's going to be wrestling regularly anyway. He's not scheduled for Backlash. He's not scheduled for the King of the Ring, Queen of the Ring show in Saudi Arabia. Maybe he might be on a SmackDown here or two, maybe wrestling, who knows. But more likely, he'll be in London on 4th of July weekend for Money in the Bank. So, I mean, again, there's still a lot of time to stretch this out. So I just think I think Paul swerved us. But again, getting back to the premise about like who's running things. I mean, again, Michael Cole said it on Friday night. Oh, the guy who runs the place, the guy who runs the show. Now, again, the marks are still going to have their conspiracies, Pat. They're going to be like, oh, well, Vince told him to say that to swerve us because Vince doesn't want to. I mean, that's what happened. And you read Twitter and they were like, oh, well, 30 years of Vince telling Michael Cole what to say. What's one more thing? That was the premise Friday, which I think is nonsense. Again, going back to and again, I don't want to make this like I'm teaching business 101. But again, if something changed structurally within the company itself, they're legally obligated by the Securities and Exchange Commission, the SEC, to make that information public. They haven't. So clearly nothing's changed. But again, marks don't want to hear that. But
no.
Yeah.
No, they don't. They don't, Fern, because you know what? At the end of the day, these people are obsessed with their narrative. They're obsessed with nitpicking everything. I mean, we got this great weekend, this great WrestleMania weekend, okay, with 2 nights of great matches, stacked action, okay, and people are nitpicking. Oh, this one was better than that one. That one was better than this. This match was trash. This match was that. Yo, dude, all the matches were good. Even the matches that weren't that good or weren't that compelling for me were still very well done and very well produced. Okay, botches happens, things happen. It is what it is. But at the end of the day, these guys executed, man. They executed, and they executed at a very high level, man. And for whatever reason, marks want to find something to fucking complain about, no matter what. So because this Raw after Mania wasn't good because most of the roster was sent home because they'd been on the road pretty much a week. Now all of a sudden people, oh, well, Vince is back because the show was rewritten and it sucked and this and that. Like, do you people forget that this guy's the one who came up with everything that you fucking like, everything that you mark out for, everything that you fucking own? A good chunk of these properties are his, And it's just like, it's no fucking respect. And it's the typical nonsense. It's the typical boogeyman bullshit that all these fucking marks have. You know what I'm saying? So
no, I'm with you. I'm totally with you. And speaking of, talking about executing at a very high level, which is what Mania was this weekend, which we'll get to in a little bit. And now transitioning to not executing at a high level, let's move on to AEW, who's also in the news this week. A big announcement on Wednesday, just like Triple H's big announcement on Monday, and then on this past Friday, which we'll get to in a moment. AEW CEO, Booker, President, General Manager, whatever. Tony Khan. He's got more titles than Jerry Jones, for God's sakes. But Tony Khan announcing that All In was one of the premier independent wrestling shows back in 2019 before AEW came into existence. And certainly the All In show, and again, to his credit, obviously mentioning who the pioneers were, Cody Rhodes, the Young Bucks, Kenny Omega, etc. I'm talking about what the success of All In was and what it meant to professional wrestling, about having a different alternative, a different option for pro wrestling fans. Well, Tony Khan's being really ambitious this week, though, Pat, because it's funny for a guy that can't fill a stadium in North America, one that his father owns, by the way, where he doesn't have to pay a fee to use the building. Apparently, Tony Khan feels it's a good idea to fly across the Atlantic Ocean. And in late August this summer, he will have sort of a commemorative show, I guess. The 4-year anniversary of All In will take place from London in the world-famous, iconic Wembley Stadium with a capacity of 90,000 seats, to the best of my knowledge. Tony Khan will be obviously scheduling All In that Saturday night. And then crazily, the next Saturday, which is Labor Day weekend, will be All Out in Chicago. So back-to-back shows by AEW, but more importantly, the big announcement, they're looking to fill Wembley Stadium. I think this is madness. And a lot of marks who want to die on that hill, they're defending. You see, this is a game changer. This is how Tony Khan's and it's now sticking to WWE. I'm sorry. They can't even fill up the Prudential Center this past November for a pay-per-view. And it wasn't a bad show altogether, but they couldn't even fill up Prudential Center or in San Francisco at the Chase Arena for Revolution. How in God's name is Tony Khan going to get 90,000 seats filled in that ballpark? I know there's logistics, and maybe I'm being hyperbolic, but I don't see it.
Look, I think it's fair for you to say that, given their track record in the States, the fact that they haven't really drawn very well. But I'll say this much, in their defense. I think that this is actually a good move. And I think it's a good move because they probably won't sell out a stadium in the U.S., but they probably could sell out or get close to a sellout in Europe. You got to consider the fact that the UK wrestling scene is really big, right? Then you got a wrestling scene in Germany. Then you got a wrestling scene in France, Spain, Italy. I mean, all over Europe, okay? You're going to tell me that if AEW is doing a big stadium event in Europe, that none of these people are going to go out there when it's like a 2-hour train, you know what I'm saying? Because it's a lot easier for these guys to travel all over these countries out in Europe. It kind of makes sense. And I think that they're actually going to do a lot better than people think, because of the fact that you're going to have so many people from so many of these other European countries there to check this show out. Now, the interesting thing between now and then, and as we learned, from this past week's episode of AEW Dynamite, Jay White is now signed with All Elite Wrestling, and FTR, which was reported a while back, although I think this was a big work on their part, they also re-signed with AEW as well, as they became 10-time tag team champions by defeating the Ass Boys. So, they're going to have those guys there, right? They're going to have Jay White. They're going to have Kenny Omega in all probability. They're going to have the Young Bucks. They're going to have FTR. CM Punk, that's a question to me. Is he going to be there? Drew. I mean, in all probability, Drew's probably going to resign. But you never know, man. You can't rule anything out. So I'm kind of curious to see where they go with this. I definitely think that there's going to be a lot of involvement from a lot of the European indies. And I think that you're going to have representation for a lot of those companies, which I think is going to lead to more people attending this event than, let's say, they might normally attend in the States. Do I think that they're going to get 90,000? No. We're not talking about the fucking FA Cup final here. We're not talking about the Champions League final. We're not even talking about like League One, League Two, Cup final or anything like that. No, we're not talking about anything like that. I think, and I'm gonna say this now, I think they're gonna get anywhere between 40 to 45,000 people there. That's what I think. I think they'll get it somewhere in between 40 to 45,000.
But it's one thing about what happened last summer, for example. I'll let you finish. I'm sorry. Like,
Sure.
it's one thing about what happened last summer in Nashville for SummerSlam, where we knew that there were not. No. What I'm saying is, like, I think that what happened, for example, last summer in Nissan Stadium in Tennessee, like, they weren't going to fill. Again, we were coming out of the pandemic, I think, for the most part. I think it was still expensive. It's SummerSlam. It's a pretty expensive ticket. And again, if you looked at certain, I think, social media posts about the way the stadium was, the way it was, I guess, seated, whatever, you know that there was not a good portion of seats that weren't being used. But I think all 80-something thousand seats weren't used for SummerSlam. And that's one thing. That's one thing for a dynamic like that building where, again, you know, maybe there were still international travel restrictions. Tickets were going to be a little expensive. I understand why it was only like 60-something thousand last. And again, that's still an amazing number for SummerSlam. It's a stadium show. Amazing. However, you're going to have to really tape off a big part of that building. You're basically going to chop the building in half if you're telling me that at best they're going to get 45,000 seats. I don't know, man. That's a bad dynamic the way it looks. You're chopping up half a building. It doesn't, like, and again,
Well, I don't think they'll even chop it up, Fern. I think they'll just eliminate that upper bowl. You know what I'm saying? I think that what they do is they typically allocate a certain amount according to what they would like the attendance and the configuration to be, like the hypothetical attendance and just the configuration between the stage and the ring and everything else. And then they kind of take it from there. But I would say they're not going to like cover half the building up. I would say that top bowl they'd probably eliminate and black it out completely. You know what I'm saying? So it won't be that visible, but I get what you're saying as well.
D, are we losing Pat or me or what's up? I don't
I'm
know.
here. Can you hear me? Technical difficulties.
I think Fern went fro for a little bit.
Okay.
You went fro for like a second, but Fern was fro for like a couple seconds.
It's the first and only time Fernando will ever have a fro.
But say it like that.
But like we were talking about before, I think that, you know, they're going to configure this a certain way. They're going to basically lay this whole thing out so that at least the top section, that top bowl,
but I mean,
be blacked out.
It's going to look pretty fucking cheap, though, if you ask me.
I don't think so at all. I think that the way that they're going to set it up is going to be top notch. Mm-hmm. And I think that they're going to be able to at least create the perception that there's a bigger audience there than what they would anticipate. So, I mean, look, at the end of the day, like I said, I think that they have enough star power to at least get 20,000, you know? Hey, Fern, you're back with us, pal. You there?
Yeah, I don't know what happened. I'm sorry. I don't know what happened with my internet.
Johnny!
Damn.
Oh, yeah. No.
I hate Verizon. If I can just say that for the record. I hate
You
Verizon.
want to say that for the record?
I really hate Fios. I really hate Verizon. If they could all catch like I don't know, some urinary tract infection, I would love that. I would really love that for the CEO of Verizon Fios.
Fern, you should look into asking them, and it's free that they give it to you. They let you borrow it until you give it back. Wi-Fi extenders.
You got that, Fern? Wi-Fi extender?
Yeah, I got one. I got one for free from them. I
am using it. I am using an extender. I am using an extender for Fios. It's awful.
I think it's just Weehawk and Northburg.
No, I'm using their extender. I'm using a Verizon.
Hey! Don't lump in the
using a Verizon
with where this guy's from. All right. Listen, I don't live anywhere near Umberto Uribe. I mean, whatever your name is, Fernando Uribe. All right.
You just called him Umberto.
Dr. Uribe to you, Rivera.
Doctor, I got a rash. I got to show you. It's on my elbow.
Well, I'm a man of science, but a social science. I'm an MD, unfortunately. So.
It's all right. Thank you, Umberto. I appreciate that. So,
of course, VCR, of course. I don't know
but
where.
we were just talking about the stadium show, right, with AEW. Okay, so you're saying that you think this visual is going to be a bit of an eyesore.
Well,
It's going to kind of look embarrassing for them.
They specifically emphasized in the ad and in the promo, 90,000. So like, it's not like, they're just saying, we're going to be in Wembley Stadium. They specifically went the way to say 90,000 seats. So they're confident that they can fill that because, again, that's the whole premise. We want to be in the big time. So I think that wasn't by mistake either.
Are they getting Hulk Hogan?
I mean, but again, too, you got to understand this too. All right, this is their first big stadium show in Europe. Okay, they're gonna draw well on the strength of that alone. Plus, you got to figure that they're gonna have New Japan guys there. We don't know what's going to happen with Drew. In all probability, he's probably going to stay, but we don't know. CM Punk is kind of still up in the air. They have enough talent to be able to fill up a stadium. Okay, 90,000, that's kind of tough. But let's see how this goes. Let's see who's involved. We got a lot of time between now and then. I'm calling it now. I think they're going to go 40, 45,000. I think they're going to do, a Wrestle Kingdom size crowd. I don't think that they're going to get 90,000 unless somehow they sign John Cena and Roman Reigns overnight. I don't see it. But 40 to 45,000, I think with guys like Okada, Sonata, who's the new IWGP champion who beat Okada, Mercedes Moné. A lot of these people, man, like those. But Fernando, those are big stars though for that mark wrestling community in England, man, and a lot of those indie companies out there. And again, it's just, bro, it's an hour, 2 hours away on a fucking train. These people are gonna fill up that stadium to some extent. I really believe it.
I mean, but isn't that the whole purpose of Forbidden Door in June, to sort of have these, like, again, the AEW, New Japan.
Why not do more? Why not do more of this kind of stuff? When you're hyping up these big shows, you want to beef up your attendance, especially when you're having a hard time filling up a 5,000 seater for fucking TV. So like I understand why they're doing these big team ups, man, because you want to get the biggest cards possible. You want to get the most people there. Smart move, man. I mean, again, there's a lot of things that this guy does that I don't understand as somebody who has worked in wrestling, who's been around bookers, who's friends with bookers, who's sat under their learning tree. There's a lot of things that he does that I just don't get. But as far as this goes, I think this is actually a pretty decent move. It's a smart move. And he's trying to stack as many cards possible to really get as many people as he can get in and maybe hope that something happens here where, he kind of gets lightning in a bottle and things start going his way. We don't know.
Yeah. I listen, I would say I think it's very ambitious. But again, and I was having this argument with my classmates on my group chat this week and then a couple other wrestling pages during this past week after the announcement. It was just like, listen, and I mentioned the D off the air, but I mean, there's some logistics here, I think, that a lot of marks and fans don't understand, that, like, when you're booking stadiums, and again, all it takes is just to do a little research. I mean, obviously you're renting out the facility at a fee, right? So for the most part, most facility fees somewhere average between $250,000 to almost $500,000. Case in point, last year for WrestleMania, it depends on the venue. It depends on the venue and its owners. Case in point, last year in Dallas, Vince McMahon at the time running WWE had to pay $1 million for both nights. Jerry Jones decided to charge $500K per day to use the facility. Now, again, some facilities vary in North America, but you would think that Tony Khan's father, Shad Khan, who owns the Jaguar Stadium, again, one of the smaller ballparks in North America, especially for the NFL. I think it's somewhere, I'm looking at here, somewhere I think maybe in the late 60s. So, okay, that's fine. Bro, you're avoiding a fee by just using that ballpark, and they can't fill it up here. Now, you're right. You're 100% on the money about it's a resource in Europe. There's a lot of indie promotions in Western Europe, I think, that will want to get involved here. They'd be smart to get involved with Tony Khan to try to fill up that building. But it's just like, it just seems like ass backwards. We're like, bro, you're flying across the Atlantic Ocean in the dead of summer when you can't even fill up buildings in North America. I get it's ambitious. Good for them. Hey, you know what? You want to cheer it on. But it just doesn't make logistical sense when, like, you can't even fill up buildings in your own country to think you're going to go overseas, that's a little arrogant on behalf of Tony Khan.
I don't know, Fern. I got to disagree here. I really genuinely think that he's kind of latching himself on to the more passionate fan base. I think, a lot, and this isn't even just like me guessing here or me just, going based off what I've seen. Like, I know people that have wrestled in England. I know people that have wrestled all over Europe, and they're really, really into it, man. Like, they are big, passionate. It's feverish. I mean, you go to England, let's say, for example, right, where this event's going to be taking place. You got tons of indies all over the place there. You got guys like, you telling me Will Ospreay isn't going to get cheered over there, bruv? You're going to tell me Will Ospreay isn't going to get a huge, huge, huge reception, bruv? Come on, man. We already know what the deal is here.
No, I get it. I get it.
That and I just think that, it's going to create a better atmosphere. You're going to have alcohol. You're going to have a bunch of football hooligans. They're going to be singing. I mean, bro, it's going to be electric over there. And again, not just that, but like the indie scene in Europe is not as big as the indie scene here. Like you don't really go like combing the indie scenes in Europe outside of like RCW, WXW, like, the known companies, Rev Pro, like outside of those companies, they don't, the WWE doesn't really go combing the indies as much there. Over here, it's known that the indies are where there's a lot of talent, especially the East Coast. And I'll fucking die on that hill. But I don't know, man. I gotta say, I think this is a smart move on his part. I think that the fan base is going to be really, really, really excited. And this is his first big stadium show. And I think it's smart to do it in a place where his company really doesn't go.
Listen, no, it's fair enough, Pat. And I think, listen, it remains to be seen. It's Easter Sunday. We still got months and months of shows coming up to set up ultimately what would be the plot lines for All In, right? Obviously, we have Double or Nothing emanating from Las Vegas during Memorial Day weekend. Obviously, we have the Forbidden Door coming up in late June. And then we have All In Wembley Stadium in late August. And then again, the week after Labor Day weekend is All Out from Chicago. To the best of my knowledge, I think Tony Khan wants to move it to the United Center, a bigger arena than the, I believe what the other, I'm not sure what the other arena is called in Chicago. It's a smaller venue. I think it's what the, where CM Punk won the WWE title in the summer of 2011. Maybe the Now Arena. I'm not sure.
They got lame ass.
Oh, the Rosemont Horizon.
Yeah, but it was called something else eventually. Like the Rosemont Horizon became something else. The Now Arena. I'm not sure.
The Rosemont Horizon is where CM Punk won that title, dude.
That's not what it was called, though, per se.
It wasn't called that then, but it's the same building.
Okay, cool. So it's interesting to see exactly back-to-back weekends on shows. It's like, well, if you're an AEW mark and you want to pay that money, God bless you. That's back-to-back $50 you'll be paying on at the end of August, early September for two shows, and we'll see what happens. Pat, interesting news here. I wanted to get your thoughts on this because I know we've talked about it off the air, but interesting on Wrestling Inc. this weekend. Jim Johnston, and for a lot of us WWE/WWF fans, that's a big name for us. Jim Johnston came out in an interview this week, interesting, on a podcast, talking about criticizing modern-day wrestling themes for generating no emotions. So Dylan Murray, actually one of the better writers. I mean, I like him as a columnist. He doesn't break a lot of news per se, but he's a good writer in terms of, as a columnist, articulating about pro wrestling. So this week he wrote, one of the most important things about a wrestler's presentation is their theme music. While there have been some legendary theme songs in both WWE, going back to WCW/NWA, and now AEW in recent years, many consider Jim Johnston's, WWE's former head musical composer, the cream of the crop when it comes to wrestling themes. Johnston produced many of the most notable themes in terms of pieces of music up until his release from the company in 2017, giving him a grasp on what really makes a wrestling theme song great. So he went on to say this week, he was on the Conversations with Conrad, one of your favorite podcast hosts, Conrad Thompson. The legendary songwriter has seen how wrestling theme music has changed in his absence. And he personally feels as though something is missing in many modern wrestling themes. Again, appearing this past week with Conrad Thompson, he says, he went on to explain what's necessary to truly make a great song. And I figured I want to talk with you about this, Pat, because you're a musician, so I think this would resonate with you. He said, quote, music for me is all about making people feel something. That's its purpose. There's so much music out there that's so much better produced than anything I can do, and it doesn't make you feel anything. Now, Johnson explained to Conrad Thompson why he feels modern theme music has fallen into this area. It doesn't make you feel anything. It doesn't have anything to do with the character anymore, which I think is an incredibly missed opportunity. It's certainly homogenous and very generic. It feels like it's just out there like, oh, this guy's hard-hitting, so hard-hitting drums, and it doesn't make you feel anything. While Johnson has made overtures to AEW regarding producing music for them, Tony Khan has respectfully declined. As a result, he's remained away from the wrestling industry in the years since his WWE departure. I get what Jim is trying to say here. And again, let's be honest, Jim Johnson is responsible for so many iconic themes, from The Undertaker to The Ultimate Warrior to, Bret the Hitman Hart, the Hart Foundation, the Rocket Owen Hart, the Nation of Domination. I mean, we don't have enough fingers and toes here to name all the great things that we've loved listening to. Let's be honest. We play it on our YouTube playlist when we go work out, when we whatever. Let's not pretend like we don't listen to some of these themes still in our adult years. So Jim Johnson's a big part of our upbringing. But to your point, I wanted to ask your opinion, Pat, again, as a musician. What do you think about Jim's comments this week?
Well, first of all, I'm not a musician. I'm
You're an artist.
I am merely a vocalist. A vocalist. And Dee gets that joke. But the guys that I actually work with in my bands, those are musicians, and those are talented guys. And I'm very lucky to be working with guys like them and collaborating with guys like them. But on that note, Jim Johnson came up with a lot of great stuff. And another guy that I think doesn't get enough respect is the Mouth of the South, Jimmy Hart, man. Yeah. Jimmy Hart came up with a lot of great theme songs. Shawn Michaels, there you go, from the Dungeon. They're shouting us out. I wonder who's controlling that page. It's just Jim Johnson, I understand where he's coming from. A lot of the AEW theme songs, they don't really catch on. The ones that do catch on, they're songs that are actually hits. Like, they're actually known songs, like Moxley's theme song, like Jungle Boy's theme song.
Orange Cassidy's, I forgot who the artist is, but Orange Cassidy, that's not original. Like, that's somebody else.
He had the Pixies before that. You know what I'm saying? Okay. He had Where Is My Mind. And, that's a good song too. But it's like, they don't have any really original theme songs. Like, none of them. Even MJF's theme song, it's kind of okay. It's not really all that great. You know what I'm saying? But, like, I don't know, dude. I just think, like, yeah, there is something to this. I think there aren't enough songs that are being written by these guys nowadays that are kind of getting that emotional reaction. Like Danielson's theme song in WWE is a lot better than his theme song now, man. That song in AEW, it's kind of weak, man. It's kind of weak. So, yeah, I definitely think that, some of these wrestlers nowadays could use better original theme music. And obviously, I don't think that there's anybody that's really going to compare to Jim Johnson and his legacy, along with Jimmy Hart as well.
I'm really shocked that Tony Khan would decline to hire him because, I'll be honest with you, when you look at AEW's theme music, again, listen, I think we all know how much, if you follow my social media, you know how much of a mark I am for FTR and their theme song, which, again, is an adaptation of a famous theme song from arguably one of the top 10 greatest tag teams of all time, obviously. But you look.
Did you say that just the theme song is an adaptation of one of the greatest tag teams of all time? Or the whole shtick, shtick.
Well, I mean, we can argue that for a different program, but
okay.
But I think, listen, I got to be honest with you. I think part of why we've enjoyed wrestling since we were children is there was something about, whether it was Jim Johnson, to your point about Jimmy Hart, whether it was helping him with Rick Derringer write A Real America. Let's be honest, dude. From better part of the mid 80s to early 90s, the reason wrestling got to where it was with gate and pop culture notoriety was Hulk Hogan. That Real American theme song was iconic. The Ultimate Warriors. Also The Undertaker. Hey, the Hart Foundation. That's a great theme song. Okay, and then adapting it to Bret's solo theme in the mid 90s after winning the WWE title for the second time at Madison Square Garden. You look at the Nation of Domination. You look at Ahmed Johnson. You look at Psycho Sid. Bro, even Sid Justice, going back to 92, that was a good theme song. You look at the Beverly Brothers, the Nasty Boys, Money Incorporated. I mean, again, I could sit here all night thinking about great themes. You would think that that's a great resource that you would want to tap into it. And again, I think it's another missed opportunity by Tony Khan.
Well, I mean, look, I'm not surprised because it's Tony Khan, you know. I just finished giving this guy credit for for taking the risk of trying to go to fucking Wembley, but I mean, like, I gotta say, man, like, honestly, like, I just think that it's kind of silly for him to not want to work with a guy like Jim Johnston, not want to have him come up with theme songs, better theme songs, obviously, for his talent there, and I don't know, man. The guy puzzles me in a lot of regards, but this is another one of them. I mean, look, maybe he wants to do it on his own. Maybe he thinks that the people that he's got working for him are better. Who knows? I don't know what goes on in the snowman's mind, you know?
Again, the only good theme songs AEW has aren't even original. Moxley's Wild Thing, going back to loving Major League, one of the best, not just baseball movies, sports movies of all time.
By X. It's by X.
Yeah, it's an amazing
hardcore bands ever.
It's a great theme song. The Young Bucks, Super Kick Pate, like it's not great. Kenny Omega's isn't like really distinguishable. Again, Orange Cassidy's new theme. Again, it's somebody's. I forgot who it is. I don't want to Google it. I mean, it's catchy, maybe the beginning, but that's it. You look at Wardlow. You look at, MJF, I think is perfect because it's a very heelish type of theme. But when you look at everybody else, like Jungle Boy, it's not original. Yeah. You look at Sammy
Even
Guevara.
Adam Cole's. Adam Cole's is a ripoff of the Undisputed Era one, which is a ripoff of Rage Against the Machine. Yeah. So it's like...
Yeah, you look at Sammy Guevara. Not great. Yeah. Okay, Judas is Judas. That's original from Jericho. Fine. But the problem is that, like, you look at the other stars, again, part of... And I get what Jim was saying here. Like, you kind of want to give the character more. And I think part of the reason we've drawn an allegiance and a fandom to certain guys and girls over the years was because of their themes. Say what you want. Trish Stratus. I mean, obviously, you love Trish Stratus for obvious reasons, but the theme song was catchy. It was perfect for her. The same thing with obviously Lita to some extent. When you looked at Victoria, even though that was an adaptation of, or at least a sample of another song, you look at, again, I get what Jim was saying here, and I think it's important, but if you really want to help AEW get more mainstream, more pop culture, more of a, hey, they're more visible, you got to have wrestlers come out to better themes. I mean, listen, case in point, look at what the Shield music represented to the careers of Seth Rollins, John, Dean Ambrose and Roman Reigns. What was the risk of changing the Shield song, which Roman carried for a while, to the iconic theme that it is now? Bro, that theme right now for Roman, bro, that's top 5 all time now. Think about the significance of what that theme means to him now, and his character, his presence as an on-screen performer. Again, I think that's why theme music is so important. Again, it's up to the talent to get over, right? It's up to the talent to get themselves over with the crowd, to do better character work, to be good workers in the ring. But that theme music, I think, plays a big, big role. And to undercut it or to not give it its due diligence like Tony Khan should be doing. I mean, say what you want about Impact. Look at some of the original themes that Impact has produced for certain guys and girls. It's still catchy. But again, I think that's a big part of the presentation, which AEW lacks.
Yeah, absolutely, man. I think that, it's all one big package. What you get in the ring, the promos, the entrance, the gear, everything about it. You know what I mean? It's what sells the character to the audience. It's what gets people hooked. Wrestling is a part of it, but wrestling ain't all of it. And I just think that it helps when you have a catchy theme song to kind of get you over and get people pumped for your matches. And, that's the whole big thing. You're selling fights. So, music definitely goes a long way.
Absolutely. Again, Jim Johnston, a great guy. And I'm sure he's doing well with himself in terms of what he was compensated for all those years. Let's get to the ratings here. As we talked about earlier, obviously with what the Raw After Mania represents, obviously a 2.26. Despite how bad the marks were just destroying this show. Oh my God, it was awful. You could tell Vince is back. Whatever the narrative was, there's still a pretty healthy 2.26 again after Mania. And mind you, up against a really, really competitive national championship game between the University of UConn and San Diego State. So, the Huskies and Aztecs put on a hell of a game on Monday night on CBS. And despite that, Raw still did a very good 2.26, definitely up from 1.84 the week before the Raw going into Mania. And the rest of March was 1.77, 1.705, and 1.83. So definitely a boost, and I'm sure that it'll continue to be probably in the twos. That's not going to change anytime soon.
No, I don't think so at all, man. It's really funny how Mark's trashed this show so much, said how horrible it was. Vince was in charge, the 50 million rewrites, all this other stuff, a roulette wheel, a midget, a piece of cheese, all these things that were going on backstage, right? But nobody knew that most of the talent was gone. And even with that, the matches weren't terrible. And on top of that, we got the start of a really hot angle with Cody and Brock. So, I mean, at the end of the day, I'm not surprised that number was huge. I wouldn't be surprised if the number still keeps trending upward. They're firing on all cylinders. And they're going to follow up with another good episode of Raw this week. So I'm excited to see where it goes.
No, it'll definitely be good. And again, folks, and we've talked about this off the air, Pat. Again, listen, television consumption has changed dramatically. I think that people that are into nostalgia about the way we look at television and consume it, especially when it comes to wrestling, I think has been very different, right? The idea that we're going to get back into the high threes of the Attitude Era. It's not to say the product isn't good. It is. But
impossible.
I would just – what's that?
It's impossible, bro. The demographic is totally different now.
Yeah, and I would say, and I would argue that with the addition of streaming channels, even before streaming, like DVR, I mean, that was a crucial component about our cable systems. We can listen. I watch Raw in the first segment, and if I'm like, okay, I'm fine, I'll switch over to Tucker. I'll watch Tucker Carlson on Fox News, and I'll watch CNN. I'll watch MSNBC. Maybe I'll flip over to the national championship game again. But Danny Hurley, Jesus Christ, Jerry.
But you know what? You're doing just like the '90s, flipping stations, but there's not a second good wrestling company to flip over to. And
exactly. And again, it's not even just that too, but it's also the premise that we also have regular broadcast television. The Bachelor, maybe it's not for you and me, but it does well for ABC. The shows on NBC, like The Voice, okay? Whatever else is on Fox at that time, The Masked Singer, all that stuff. Again, it's not to say that we maybe can't ever get back to Attitude Era 3.5, maybe 4 million viewers. That's kind of hard. Not because the product isn't good. It's just I think that the way that television consumption has changed dramatically in the last 10 years, I think has something to do with that. Listen, we've seen a lot of good stories. Let's not pretend like the Bloodline has not been compelling television for a little over 2.25 years now. Okay, maybe 2+ years. Okay, it's the numbers we're getting is what they are. It's not because the product's bad. It's just I think that it's the variable about the short attention society that we live in, right? We're so smartphone intensive. Streaming has changed the game. You can go back and watch Raw in an hour if you missed any part of it. The idea of sitting there for 3 hours consecutively and watching a show, I don't want to say it's not realistic anymore, though, Pat. I think it's just the dynamic has changed. Again, as I mentioned to Dee right now, if I don't like the first 20 minutes of Raw, I'll switch over to watch Tucker. I'll watch the national championship game. Again, shout out to Danny Hurley, Jersey City boy, for coaching the Huskies to a national championship. Shout out to him. I'm watching that. I'm watching CNN. I'm watching MSNBC. Maybe I'm flipping on The Bachelor. Maybe I'm flipping on The Voice. Who knows? There's a lot of options for us in addition to whatever else we're watching on streaming. So it's a good number. I hate when marks go crazy. Oh, my God, look how Raw's declined. It's not declining. It's still a strong number. I hate to bring up the demo, but in terms of who they're focusing in on, right, Raw is still drawing good numbers for the metric. Again, to get back to that 3.54, I don't want to say it's not realistic. I just think it's not feasible in this marketplace because, bro, there's so many options.
I mean, look, I'm not going to say that it's not possible for them to get 3. You know what I'm saying? I think that it's very, very possible for them to do it, but they got to have a hot angle. They got to have something interesting to bring people in. You got a show like Succession tonight, right? They're in their final season, one of the best shows ever, okay? Ever. They're drawing 11 million viewers. You know what I'm saying? Now, granted, the way we watch it is different. It probably should be higher, if it wasn't for the app, and I'm sure they're accounting for the app too. But like, it's very possible for us to do it. It's very possible for wrestling to do it. And I think that, by them producing a better company, you're going to tell me that if they had CM Punk, Roman Reigns, and Conor McGregor on one show, you tell me that wouldn't get 3 million viewers, or wouldn't sniff 3 million viewers?
Pat,
wouldn't sniff 4?
No,
You know
Pat,
what I'm
it
saying?
would. No, it would. All I'm
Very
saying is
possible.
all I'm saying is that there's a lot of options. The number is still very
Sure.
good. And all I'm saying is that the number is still very good. And the problem is that marks want to try to poo-poo it and say, well, look, it's not what it used to be. But television has changed. I mean, think about it.
Right.
Watching the Attitude Era, you literally you couldn't pause something and say, oh, I'll get back to it in a second. Let me just go and check out this show. No, like you either flip back and forth to watch Nitro or Raw, and you had to make a decision. And again, this is pre-DVR. This is pre-streaming. Okay, unless you were one of these creative kids like you and I and many others, where we recorded it in another room and then we watched one show and then we got the VHS tape and watched it, we didn't rely on the fact that Nitro's being replayed at 1 a.m. Let's be honest, how many times have we stayed up until 1 a.m? We probably weren't. Okay, so television has changed, streaming. Now, to your point about Succession, for example, listen, HBO, that's a drama. It's a different demographic it's catered to. The wrestling audience, I think, and this is also a bigger problem too, in a dynamic I think we don't talk about enough. Like the reason that Paul and Vince and Nick Khan are working so hard to draw new audiences is because, let's be honest, the wrestling audience has shrunken a little bit in the last maybe decade. Yeah. Kids that watch it during the Attitude Era are now adults. They're parents. Maybe they don't want their kids watching. Whatever the case may be, it's like you have to create a new audience. You just can't hook guys like you and me because they got us hooked already. They got us. We're going to watch. Now, am I going to buy merch in the hundreds of dollars when I go to a house show or a show at the Garden or a pay-per-view? Maybe, probably not. But that's not who Nick Khan.
It's because you get laid. That's why.
What's that?
It's because you get laid. That's why.
Well, fair enough.
But guys that don't get laid, they're going to buy that.
Fair enough. But this is the thing. It's like you have to keep creating a new audience. How do you do it? You reel them in by doing certain things with pop culture, and that's how you get kids to watch. Again, to the point, right behind me, right? I'm so incredibly grateful you gave me those FTR collectible figurines, and that's a big market because right after Mania, you're gonna have new figurines. There's a marketplace for that. There's a market for new T-shirts. Yeah. There's a marketplace for comic books. Like, there's an ability to create a new audience, and how do you do that? You do that by catering this show to a demographic that you don't have right now. Well, not to say you don't have, but you want to build on it. They have you and me and Dee. They already have us. We're going to keep watching. I'll keep bitching and moaning about certain things I don't like or watching 57 ads during a live PLE or whatever, but they got me hooked. It's fine. Right, they got me hooked. They got Dee hooked. Right. It's about building the audience, and I think that's what they're doing.
Absolutely. And I think that's something that we don't talk about enough, man. I think a lot of podcasts don't talk about it enough. The fact that they're not growing the audience, they're not really expanding upon it. They're not, they got us, they got the marks, they got all the people that, I'd say, in their 30s upward, they're all invested. But again, it's about making new fans. My kids, one of the matches that they love the most from WrestleMania was Logan Paul versus Seth Rollins, because they've watched Logan Paul's YouTube videos, they've watched his brother's YouTube videos, they've been on Disney stuff. So my kids knew who they were. They knew who KSI fucking was. I don't know who the fuck KSI was. You know what I'm saying? So it was just like, this is drawing in a different part of the crowd. And this is bringing more eyes to the product, more eyes to different people that they might not have been interested in wrestling, but now because somebody that they like's in it, they're gonna watch. So it's a smart business tactic, man. It really is.
Yeah. Speaking of not having more eyes on your product, let's switch over to Dynamite this week, and still
Uribe, you got the cold fucking segues with AEW this week.
You know me, man. You know me. And you know what? Despite the fact that during the 9 o'clock hour, the MJF segment, I thought was really good. I think that was his best character work in quite some time. Coming out on Long Island with the orchestra behind him, with the white tuxedo, the black tie, like Dean Martin at Copacabana. Like, he came out. I was waiting for him to be like, in the wonder of it all, Foxwoods. Like, I was waiting for that shit, you know? And it was a good segment, but despite that, and a lot of so-so matches during the night. I mean, obviously not the main event. FTR winning the AEW World Tag Team titles to now complete their collection of championships that they've accumulated around the globe. Still 877,000 viewers, only up slightly from the previous week to end March with 833. Their highest, thus far, Pat, in 2023, they've only cracked 1 million twice. And that was in January 25th. It was 1.003, which is just barely scraping 1 million. February was 1.028. They had another high mark. I think that they had a couple high 900,000s in early January, but lately it's been 800,000s. They had, which one? I think they had a really bad, the 824, but everything's been like high 800,000s. Again, this week, 877,000 for a show that was advertised as MJF Day in Long Island, right? You had the city supervisor come out with the key to the city, MJF Day, the balloons, the orchestra. You had FTR win the tag titles. You had, I think, Orange Cassidy defend the international championship. Bro, it's not even 900,000. It's not even 900,000 viewers. And marks are going to tell me or lecture me that this is a product that's on the rise and people are watching. Not enough people, clearly.
No, not enough. I mean, and again, I think it's a lot of the emotional connection. You know, these people, they don't like WWE. They don't like Vince McMahon. They've got it in their head that Vince is a horrible person. They want to see the company go down, or they want to see the company under different leadership, which, newsflash, it fucking is. But, you know, I just think that, look, man, at the end of the day, for as good as MJF is at what he does, it's still not enough, man, because the character work isn't there, man. Like, a lot of people aren't really as invested in him as maybe they think that they are. You know, even FTR, man, you know, you look at FTR is a really solid tag team in the ring. Those guys can go. But as far as characters go and being compelling, they're pretty fucking dry. You know what I'm saying? And I thought that the build for that match was really good. I think Billy Gunn's boys, man, you know, they've been doing a great job, man. Those guys have really just been, you know, coming out there.
Those are his real kids?
Matches. Yeah, those are his real kids. They've been putting on great matches. I love their drip. You know, obviously, I know about drip. I'm the most stylish one on this show.
Dude, you drip more than the rain, bro.
I drip till the last drop. You know what I'm saying? But, you know, I just thought that might have been enough to maybe get it in the upper 900s, but even then it still wasn't enough, man. And I think that, again, it's lacking with a lot of the character work. And, you know, Road Dogg, he said it a while back ago. I agree with him. You're not going to draw a dime with just wrestling, man. You need people to get invested in these characters. You need big characters. You need people to draw the people in and to get people emotionally invested into the product. And right now, it just seems like a lot of AEW's talent really isn't getting people emotionally invested in the product, really aren't getting people emotionally invested. So
and
it's kind of concerning.
And it's crazy because, again, the way they advertise, again, other than Tony Khan's making a big announcement and MJF Day, I said, you know what? I said, you know what? Maybe because they're teasing that, they might crack into the mid to late 900,000s. I definitely knew they weren't getting 1 million. I just had this feeling they weren't getting 1 million. But I said, oh, okay, you know what? Between the fact that, you know, the main event was the Guns putting the titles against the careers of FTR, the MJF Day, which you knew was going to be kind of like the Rebar Mitzvah. It was probably going to be something really over the top. But, bro, that was good character work for MJF. Like, that was
It was. And he always has good character work for the most part. But, again, it's kind of redundant with the fucking heat. You know what I'm saying? He comes out. He says that thing you're not supposed to say. He has the zinger. Ooh, he's edgy in a fucking PC time, blah, blah, blah. You know, that whole fucking thing. He wants to be like a shock jock. But it's the same shit, man. It's the same shit. Look, that segment would have been better if Jungle Boy would have mattered more. You know what I'm saying? I think Jungle Boy doesn't matter enough, man. I think that the character work for Jungle Boy is not there. It hasn't been there since the company started. And now all of a sudden they're kind of like rushing to try and make this kid seem more important than what he is, but it's not really there, man. And you know, you'd think, Fern, and I'm sorry, just let me just finish this up here. But you'd think that, you know, when the company started, his dad passed away, I think a little bit before it, you know, you'd think that they would have put a rocket on this kid's back and they would have pushed him as like the big sympathetic white meat baby face in that company, but they didn't. And I think now they're really suffering for that.
And also, too, I think that they have to avoid trying to maybe get more attention on, because the easy go-to would be just to put his girlfriend Anna Jay with him. But that would do him a disservice because the more eyes would be on her than him. And we've all seen what happens when you put the hot chick with the guy never benefits from it. Only in the case of Macho Man Randy Savage in the mid to late 80s when he introduced Elizabeth, that's one thing, because Randy was a character. He was a good worker. The problem is when you put valets with their men or their real life girlfriends or wives, guess what ends up happening? They outshine the guy. It happened with Mark Merrow. It's happened with Karrion Kross. It's happened with, you know, other women that have outshined the guys that they're managing, whether it's their real life boyfriend or whatever. Again, I would say, hey, listen, you want to fix this up? Put Anna Jay out there with Jungle Boy. But that's not going to work either because she'll outshine him. I mean, let's be honest. Anna Jay's really nice to look at. And she has,
but she's the shits in the ring. She's not a good promo. Agreed. You know what I'm saying? Like,
her promos are better. Her promos have gotten better.
No, they haven't.
Well, they've gotten better.
You make excuse for every fucking hot chick out there, bro. It doesn't mean anything. Like, I'm sorry. Like, look, she's got a lot of upside.
Yeah.
But I don't know if enough emphasis is being done on the things that could help her. You know, she doesn't have to fucking be, you know, Steve Regal in the fucking ring. She just has to be competent enough to be able to go out there, be a big baby face, you know what I'm saying? Learn how to work from underneath and just really kind of just do basic stuff, man. Just keep it simple, but get people invested, get more involved in her character. Take some fucking acting classes. You know what I'm saying? Do stuff like that.
Well, again, I think that leads also into the fact that, you know, if Tony Khan's spending money, buy some real estate in Northern Florida, build a facility where, and again, like, folks, if you've been watching the A&E series, biographies, and the Rival show, tonight is really integral because tonight's 2 hours of Dusty Rhodes, the American Dream. And if anyone's ever had a say in helping to influence and help people with their character work, it was Dusty Rhodes. You need a facility. So when they brought in Dusty to work in Florida, in Orlando, at the Performance Center, even before that, like, that's what you need to do. Like, Tony Khan, spend some money, buy some real estate in Northern Florida, right by Jacksonville, create a facility, hire as many coaches as you can. Just throw money. Listen, he likes to throw money out there. Throw money at hiring trainers, people that can work with these guys and girls. Because let's be honest, if it's true that Kenny Omega is working with the women's division isn't getting any better. They're not getting better on the promo work. They're not getting better in the ring. So you need other trainers to come in and work with them on their personas, on their gimmicks, on their in-ring work, all that good stuff. And I think that, you know, again, I think that someone like Anna Jay would benefit from that for sure.
A lot of them would. A lot of the women there, man. I don't think that women's division is really up to snuff, man. You know, and I know that they're putting in a shift, and I know that they're doing the best they can, and I give them tons of credit for that. But I mean, something's missing there, and I don't think that it's the talent's fault necessarily. No. I just think that there needs to be some kind of structure there. And it's interesting you mentioned, you know, Tony Khan throwing all this money around, doing all this stuff. You know, you and I had talked about this off the air. You know, I just think that Tony Khan has nothing to lose, comparatively speaking, like with, let's say, Vince, right? Like Vince right now has nothing to lose, right? But like back in the day, Vince had a lot to lose. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? Vern Gagne had a lot to lose. You know what I'm saying? Bill Watts had a lot to lose. You know what I'm saying? Jim Crockett, all these guys, they all had a lot to lose. But like,
Khan has that cushion financially where, hey, if he's not making a profit right now, which again, I haven't looked at the numbers. I mean, I might have to sort of maybe search really in depth about it. But like, he has a cushion where, hey, this is not his only moneymaker. His father makes money obviously on an English football team, and certainly, you know, what his father does with the NFL team with the Jacksonville Jaguars. So there's revenue coming in. It's just a matter of like, well, Tony Khan's like, well, this is make or break for me. Like, I'm only using this amount of money, and if I need, let's say, $10 million, well, hey, Dad, by the way, with that nice little Super Mario mustache, hey, Dad, could you spot me 10 million? And believe it or not, Shad is going to do that. So it's not the same business structure as it was for Vince, where, let's be honest, again, I'm not saying this to be hyperbolic, but when they were replacing, water coolers in Titan Towers because they were really being stretched thin on profit margins, like, it's a lot different when you have to make it and you have to turn a profit. Otherwise, you're going to go under, as opposed to, hey, I'm always going to have a nice little landing spot and a little cushion to fall back on because, hey, I don't have to really make money right now. It's a big, big difference. And I think marks don't understand that, oh, Tony Khan is not this innovator. He got money to start with. It's not like he started this on his own, per se he did, but he has a financial cushion that other promoters never had.
Absolutely, dude. And at the end of the day, even if AEW goes belly up, man, he's going to be okay. He's not going to suffer. He's not going to be out on his ass. Like, he's going to be okay no matter what. So to me, it kind of seems like he's just, a rich kid playing with his action figures, except they're real life action figures, And even if the company goes belly up, he'll be okay. But the talent, not all of them are going to be able to go to WWE. Not all of them are going to be able to go to New Japan. Not all of them are going to be able to do anything. They're probably going to just go back to the indies. So I don't know, man. I mean, it kind of makes you look at like the way he does business, the way he books certain things, it's really more the way he books his programs,
I agree.
It really kind of makes you wonder. And, it kind of makes you think like, hey, maybe this guy's just booking because deep down inside, he's doing whatever the fuck he wants because he'll be okay no matter what,
That's
something
right.
to kind of consider.
Absolutely. And speaking of booking, and actually moving on to good booking, SmackDown numbers looking pretty good, obviously.
Yeah.
The SmackDown after Mania, certainly this past Friday, again, the marks went crazy online saying, oh, what a much better SmackDown. You can tell that. And again, there was always all these rumors. Oh, Vince was at an Eagles concert in New Jersey somewhere. So Vince wasn't physically at the arena to have oversight or input, and that's why the show was so much better on Friday. The number, I believe, was somewhere in the 2.5 range for the SmackDown after WrestleMania. Certainly, pretty much in line with what we've seen for the better part of 2023. 2.4 the week before, like literally the night before Mania weekend last week, March 31st. 2.484, 2.21. 2.25, 2.3, 2.45, 2.4, 2.3. Again, early twos. Certainly, this week, obviously, the SmackDown after WrestleMania flirting with 2.5-ish. Again, SmackDown's is done very well. It's on a primetime channel. Are we going to get back to threes? Maybe not, but we'll get into the high twos, and that's good for SmackDown. And let's be honest with you, for a show that has to compete with, let's be honest, now it's April. We have the NBA playoffs. We have the NHL playoffs. Shout out to our New Jersey Devils for right now. Not a good loss last night in Boston, but hey, making the playoffs, obviously.
We hung in there, man. I mean, there was a hell of a goal from Jesper Bratt too, man.
Oh, yeah.
But we definitely hung in there. It is what it is.
Probably going to finish third, home ice in the first round. You got a lot of TV to compete with. You got the NFL. You have the USFL, which is starting this weekend. You have the NBA playoffs starting. You have the NHL playoffs, MLB in full swing. My Yankees, a very, very good start to the season, 6-3. Best 9-game start since 2010. So, my Yankees are rocking and rolling. So
Judgy with 2 home runs today, man. And Nestor was towing the rubber, man. He was nasty today.
So a lot to compete with, again, as we get into April and May. SmackDown's still doing good numbers, man.
No fucking surprise. You know what I'm saying? They're going to keep doing really good numbers like they always do. I thought the show was great. I thought all the matches were great. I thought there were good return matches from WrestleMania.
But the Marks thought the show was good because Vince wasn't involved. He was at an Eagles concert, right?
Yeah. Which he wasn't. Vince isn't involved because Vince is back to chilling again. And Vince is probably going to show back up for SummerSlam to hang out. You know what I'm saying? But, like, the company's sold. Everything's done. Like, all the big shit, like, he's going to do. He's going to take care of what he's got to take care of. Triple H is the guy that's on the road, dude. Triple H is the dude that is assuming the Vince role He is the guy in charge of creative. People, you need to get this into your fucking heads already. There's no fucking conspiracy, you weirdos. All right? The boogeyman is gone for now. He'll be back at SummerSlam. Okay? But yeah, bro. It's great. It's good shit, pal. It's good shit.
It certainly is. But
I'm
good
not
numbers.
surprised. I'm not surprised. Yeah.
No, definitely good numbers. Pat, our main event for the week here. Let's sort of just surmise basically the good and the bad of WrestleMania weekend. What stood out for you? The good and the bad night one.
The wine.
Okay.
That was the good on both nights. Aside from the wine, man, it's tough, okay? Because like 3 of them really jump out at me, but then there's like that 4th one. So in no particular order, I'd probably have to say Charlotte and Rhea. Hell of a fucking match. Really unfortunate that Charlotte got hurt there, man. I think she knocked herself out there. And I actually watched that with our buddy night one, the comic book warrior, Gabe Baez. Shout out to Gabe Baez.
Woo!
And, watched it with, yeah, great. Yeah, great. Because the last time he was on the show, you were fucking embarrassing.
I was not embarrassing.
I'm sorry. And then, you know what? I'm not going to do this.
I'm a broadcast journalist.
I'm not gonna fucking dress you down on the air, dude. I'm not gonna do that because I'm a fucking character guy, and because today is Easter's. All right. So I'm not gonna do that today. But obviously, you got a fucking receipt coming your way, and hopefully you behave yourself next time that fucking Gabe's on the show, and you don't fucking humiliate our fucking show. Okay. Because you were a little ridiculous and you were a little out of line.
I'm a broadcast journalist. I have to ask these tough questions,
You're a broadcast asshole. That's what you are. Okay? All right? And I'm not going to get into this right now. And I'm sorry that I did this in front of everybody that's watching here. All 5 of you. We're pulling in AEW numbers right now. But whatever. I'm not gonna talk about that. Getting back to Charlotte and Rhea, Gabe and I were watching. Gabe also noticed that she had gotten hurt, man. And she went back to her reflexes, man. She started doing a lot of like bump and feed spots, and it, she really showed a lot of toughness. She had that mat burn across her nose. Like that was a hard hitting match. That was almost like a Japanese strong style match for like 2 women, like in America. It was just fucking great match. The other match that jumps out to me too was Sammy and Kevin against the Usos. I friggin' love that match. The emotion around that. I know there was a lot of controversy. Rudy saying, "Oh, well, Charlotte and Rhea should have been the main event because she was the Royal Rumble winner." Blah blah blah. And look, there's some validity to that. There's something to it. I understand that gripe, but the emotion, the ratings, the draw, everything that was there. It was there for Sammy and Kevin against the Usos, and you saw it, and it was evident in that main event. I mean, you look around and you look at the crowd, everybody was standing. I mean, with every false finish that they got closer and closer to the finish, the fans were more and more invested, and they looked like they were going to have the Usos go over, and Sammy and Kevin just kept fighting, and then just that payoff, man. That tight shot with Sammy's face, and Sammy's like got like his face is all messed up and stuff, and he's hitting those kicks at Jay, and he's having like his moment of redemption, and then they just go over and the place just explodes. What a matchup! What amazing talents in there, Sammy and Kevin. I mean, what else can you say about those guys, man? They're 2 guys that I was not a fan of at one point. I was just like, man, these guys like they're kind of just meh. They're just kind of there. Obviously they have the ability, they can work. But I think the way that these 2 guys decided to like approach all the character stuff that they were doing, I don't know what it was. I don't know what they did differently. I don't know if maybe they just finally got something they could sink their teeth into. But they just became so fucking amazing over such a period of time. The Usos, what else can you say about them? For me, the best tag team in the business. These guys main evented WrestleMania. Okay, that's how good they fucking are. They main evented night 1 of fucking WrestleMania. All right, and for them to have the kind of match that they did with Sammy and Kevin, for the crowd to react the way they did, It's perfect, bro. Chef's kiss, double chef's kiss on that
Yeah.
one. Meltzer probably would have given it 5 stars. He did give it 5 stars, right? He would have given it 7 stars if it was in the Tokyo Dome. So just remember that.
Yeah, I was surprised it was only 5 stars. Normally he gives. I mean, listen, he gave the Lucha Brothers and the Young Bucks like 55 stars out of 5. So I was really surprised that it was that low.
Yeah. And as far as night 2 goes, Gunter, man, Gunter, Sheamus, and Drew. I mean, what a fucking brawl, man. I mean, these guys beat the piss out of each other. They were stiffing each other, chops, hard forearms. I mean, it was strong style, man. That was true strong style. And, look at Sheamus, man. Like, what a career resurgence this guy's having. We were just talking about it the other day, about his SmackDown matchup, the opener, with the Brawling Brutes against Imperium. And, man, like, what a great matchup. And the crowd is just so behind Sheamus right now. He's a guy too, man, that I wasn't particularly high on either, man. I kind of just thought he was just there. He's always been a dude that could put in the shift, that could do what he has to do. But now he's finally got something that, like, he's just really making his own. It's working. And Gunter, man, what a talent. What a fucking amazing wrestler. And a guy that's just, like, slowly just ascending to that upper echelon of main eventer, man. The sky's the limit for this dude. I really am curious to see how he does once he gets some more character work, underneath his belt. But just an amazing talent to watch. Yeah. And honorable mention. Oh man, it's so tough because I really liked the Cena and Austin Theory match. I really enjoyed it. I thought that was a really good matchup. And Dom and Ray. I mean, like, that's another match that just, like, Dom and Ray. Like, what a great story they told there. I would have liked to have seen Dom go over just to keep that cheap heat going, that fucking beating his dad and shit like that. It ain't even cheap heat. It's long-lasting heat. Sure. And for all you MJF marks out there, Dom right now has the best kind of heat that you could ask for. People boo him everywhere. They don't cheer him the way they do MJF. MJF's more of a tweener than anything else, man. Like, he's more of a baby face. Like, fans like him. Nobody likes Dom. Dom tried to cut a promo on Friday. Couldn't even get a fucking word in because the crowd was just so hot. But, I mean, that's another matchup that jumps out at me, I mean, there's too many to name, but, I mean, those are just a few. And, as far as anything negative, man, I don't really have anything too negative to say. I mean, the Lita and Trish and Becky match against Damage Control wasn't great. I think that Lita and Trish kind of, didn't really have it all in them that day. They couldn't really go maybe to the best of their liking, but I thought that the girls improvised really well, and I thought that they did what they did. I mean, look, all of those women are top performers, whether in the past or now, and, they put in a shift too. But, I mean, I don't really have anything negative to say about the show. I think even for the things that people might consider bad, it was still good. I mean, Omos and Brock, everybody cut that shit up to ribbons, man, online. Everybody was like, oh, this is going to be the shit. This is going to be fucking horrible. The interaction was great for it. And, dude, I thought the match was fucking good for what it was, man. I thought that these guys put in a great match. I mean, like, Lesnar suplexing him, almost taking the F5, all that stuff, man. I thought it was good. I got nothing but praise. I'm putting it over 100% for.
I mean, listen, night 1, I think what stood out for me, obviously, all your points are on the money. I'll say the showcase match for the men was great. I think the Street Profits, again, elevating them to a win, I think was very important. Yeah. Again, it's easy to forget about the Street Profits, but they're a team that I think that checks off a lot of boxes for what they're doing with, athleticism, character work. And let's be honest,
Alpha Academy too. My boy Chad Gable, dude, with that rolling German on Braun. And Braun, the athleticism of a man that size, fucking A, man.
Absolutely. What stood out for me too, when we did our preview, I love Ray going over. I think from a storytelling perspective, the idea of the dad finally getting over on the evil son, all the months of the antagonism, the ridicule, having the mom and the sister there, like that just personalized it more. It just made it more emotional. Certainly Bad Bunny interjecting himself into the match. I think obviously setting up to what we will see in Puerto Rico next month at Backlash. I love that one. I'm with you. I think maybe not, I hate to say the bad of night 1, but certainly what was a little disenchanting was the 6-woman match. Obviously, I think we know that Trish and Lita are limited at this point. Still great to see them come out on top, obviously, as the legends along with Becky. That was great for me for night one. Obviously, as you mentioned, the Usos and Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn. Listen, I was out Saturday night with my cousin and the rest of the crew. I'll tell you, I know you would have hated that venue because it was like Mark Central. There was a lot of body odor that I can't really unsmell. But we were there. But it was fun to watch. But everybody was on the edge of their seats. That match was so well produced, obviously, and seeing Kevin and Sami defeat the Usos, arguably the best tag team of probably the last decade. When you look at their in-ring work and character work, I think was amazing. Sunday night, to your point about obviously Lesnar and Omos being better than what most people predicted, I think was also a pleasant surprise. The women's showcase match, I think, was great too. I wasn't happy seeing Asuka lose. Again, it doesn't take anything away from her. She's still super over. I get it. Bianca, they're pushing Bianca into this upper echelon of a historic run that, is going to, probably be parallel with the Fabulous Moolah, Wendy Richter, Sherry Martel, Trish Stratus. I get it. They're pushing Bianca to the moon here. And she's won me over. I never liked that character. I never liked that gimmick of twirling around the ring, skipping around with the hair, but she has won me over. Her mic work is amazing. She's got a lot better in the ring. She just gets it. She's a naturally gifted athlete. I tell you, the Hell in a Cell, listen, this is my thing. And I get that it's not a product that we grew up with per se, where we look at Hell in a Cell. And I've always liked a little color in the match. We got it inadvertently with Finn Balor, unfortunately, not grabbing the ladder as it came at him. And just, for whatever reason, it was sort of like, if you remember when Angle, when Sting hit Kurt Angle with that bat impact Wrestling 6 years ago, like Kurt was supposed to kind of block the bat. It kind of went through his hands and cracked him right in the skull. Yeah. I think that's what happened with Finn Balor. Obviously, they stopped the match a little bit. They wanted the trainers to come out and clamp it, put a neutralizing agent on his cranium. Obviously, you can see there, I think I read somewhere like 50 staples were needed at the end of the night to close the wound. I don't know, Pat. Again, it's not for me. I kind of enjoy the old, Hell in a Cell matches where they would just kept going and Balor bled all over the place. So be it. But that's not what the product is now. I get it. Hell of a match.
Well,
still.
Fern, I think aside from that, and not to cut you off there, I think aside from that, he had actually hit some sort of vein or some sort of I'm at a loss for words here. The fucking the valve there with the fucking blood that ain't a vein. Any of you doctor folks out there, he had hit one of those main valves there, and he was fucking spewing out a lot. And it's my understanding, they put that on him to kind of do it. But there have been cases where people have bled and they've let them keep going. They just have the fucking ref put on the gloves and that's it, Yeah.
This one was just really egregious because of how severe, and it was pretty much a puncture wound in the top of the skull. Like he literally cracked the cranium.
Artery. He had a fucking artery or something. I don't know. Yeah, one of them big ones.
Cracked the cranium right above. And when you think about the force it took to crack that, that's that's arguably one of the hardest parts of your cranium. Again, great match.
We watched it together. I was at the Uribe family compound there. And by the way, dude, I don't understand why I have to sign so many NDAs before I even walk in the fucking door and why there's like 3 metal detectors, but whatever. That's a whole other conversation for another time. But we watched it together and we were kind of remarking that like, hey man, this is kind of fucking bananas. Your cousin was there as well too. And we were kind of just anticipating what was going to happen, but Edge, man, credit to him, kind of calling an audible, rummaging around, looking for weapons, wasting time for Finn to get his head glued together.
Sure. And I'll say this much. The one, I hate to say the bad or the negative, I think is, after what we learned about Shane McMahon in 2021 at the Royal Rumble, where apparently I think he and his father ran into some creative differences and he was pretty much written off TV for a while. It was great to see Shane McMahon back on TV, obviously in that segment with The Miz. Things happen in the ring. If you're not to say you're not in ring shape, but if you're not doing it regularly, that leapfrog, you land the wrong way, you tear a quad, and it happens. And I think from what reports are saying here, Shane McMahon suffered a torn quad, and that's going to require surgery and rehab, and that's a good 8-9 months of Shane pretty much being incapacitated. So it's unfortunate to see Shane McMahon return to WrestleMania under this I guess this spotlight, and to have that unfortunate accident. That was pretty much the only bad thing I would say about night 2, where everything else was great. As you mentioned, the Gunther match, amazing. He continues on as a great character, great worker. Yeah. They beat the piss out of each other. And listen, the main event is what it was. It was very well produced. I still had this feeling that Roman was going to retain somehow. And we talked about it earlier too. I mean, obviously in what the Raw show and why it was so significant, Cody didn't lose clean. If you say, listen, it's not like the way Roman beat Lesnar last year clean and the year before where Roman beat Daniel Bryan and Edge clean. I get it. That was like undisputed. This is still creates an aura of doubt, like Cody said in the promo. Hey, I had you. Hey, you were mine. Hey, it didn't work out. That intrigue is what keeps this story going. If he beat Cody clean, I mean, let's be honest. What are you doing to Cody at that point? You're like, not to say you're killing Cody. You're not. But that level of intrigue, that the suspense, the what if, oh, you know what? He had Roman. It took, the Usos to interfere per se. It took, a Solo Sikoa to come in, hit him with a Samoan Spike. That's all well and good. It leaves that intrigue where, and I hate it because I've sent you the screenshots. There are marks online that say, oh, Roman can never win a match clean. What are you talking about? I just gave you 2 main events at WrestleMania where they booked the finish clean. He's had other title matches that are clean. So
who fucking cares if he wins them clean or wins them dirty? He fucking wins them. He keeps people coming back. And at the end of the day, that's what fucking matters.
He's a heel. Case in point, one of the things that made Ric Flair's title defenses in the old NWA and the WCW days was that, okay, there were times he needed the Horseman to win, but there were times he beat people clean. That was the intrigue about the character. That's the same thing with Roman Reigns. Okay, he needed Solo to win this time. They've never booked matches for him to win cleanly. He has. So I think, again, all in all, a good show, great numbers as Paul Levesque talked about at the press conference afterwards. And by the way, what a well done, smooth press conference afterwards. Not the media scrums that we've come to see with AEW. And wasn't it funny for Paul Heyman and Roman to pick on that one journalist?
Yeah, Nick Hausman.
That got the whole thing going with CM Punk in September. I thought that was really, folks, you want to talk about symmetry? That was symmetry right there.
Yeah, absolutely. It was great stuff, man. We had hung out over there at the Uribe compound to watch it. And it was just incredible stuff. Triple H was just like so smooth. Like all the workers were so smooth. Everything was just great. And I was really digging it, man. I like seeing that side of them. I like the way that they do it, where it's kind of like they answer questions from like legit journalists, but they do it in a kayfabe kind of way that isn't corny or contrived. Yeah. And then Triple H comes out and just spits out the numbers, man. And it was great stuff. And big shout out to SNOOPDOGG, Snoop Doggy Dogg, man. Dude, for Snoop to improvise the way he did when Shane got hurt, to hit that fucking people's elbow, to hit those shots, to take chicken shit and turn it into chicken salad, that really says a lot about him, man, and his awareness in the ring, man. So big shout out to Snoop for that one, And for Shizzle Mendizzle. And yeah, man, again, it's amazing because you look at a show like WrestleMania, right? You show a show like WrestleMania to a casual with all this pageantry, with all this pomp and circumstance, with these celebrities that are there, with how big it is, 81,000 people and all this stuff. And you think to yourself, there's people on the other side that will tell people that there's a program on Wednesday nights that has a bunch of flips with no characters and work rate and guys that are about yay big, and that's the better fucking program. I mean,
and by the way,
it's crazy to believe that there's people that legitimately think that, but
yeah, and by the way, one of the better stages at a WrestleMania, especially in a stadium type facility, one of the better stages I can remember. The first one I can remember being, I think, that extravagant was, I believe it was in 2015 at Old Navy Park, somewhere in Santa Clara, somewhere in Northern California. That was a really good stage too. Back then.
Old Navy Park.
I think so, right? Isn't that what it's called in
No.
Sacramento?
It's the Big Denim. It's Levi's Stadium.
Sacramento. All right,
Okay.
sorry, my bad.
It's the Big Denim.
Yeah. Again, one of the better stages. And I know, listen, that's probably just like aesthetic stuff. Like, oh, Fern, that's not really important. Yeah, man, that's what makes WWE stand apart. Their attention to detail, their presentation, the stage. I mean, let's be honest. Sometimes it's been overkill, and sometimes it hasn't been enough. I think that this weekend for Hollywood and what the pageantry is, that was a perfect word you just used, pageantry. I think that was a beautiful stage. Let's see next year in Philadelphia. I'm sure maybe a big picture of the Liberty Bell, maybe a picture of Constitution Hall. Who knows? Again, Paul went out of his way to really stand out in his first WrestleMania. I got to tell you, man, as someone, again, as an academic who grades for a living, I got to give Paul an A on this one. He continues to produce A work as it remains for as being CCO. So, again, a great night 1 and 2 for WrestleMania 39. Pat, before we call it a night here on this day in wrestling history here.
Hey, Fern, I got a quick question before you hit that. Should I keep smoking and then maybe change to like a wife beater and maybe like, have somebody clean up in the background? Do you think that might be good? Do you think
you need somebody sweeping in the background, bro?
I think so. I think that'd be fucking amazing.
Maybe more belts,
Well, I mean, let's be honest. I mean, I don't think we need let's avoid being that Mark podcast, if you know what I mean.
I'm sorry. I had to Kize that one.
No, of course. But before we wrap it up, folks, on this day in pro wrestling history, very important one actually here on this day, April 9th in 1987, Jim Crockett Promotions officially acquired the operations of Mid-South Wrestling in what will become the UWF, ending the 8-year run of the independent company, obviously, as UWF would merge with Jim Crockett Promotions at the time, with the National Wrestling Alliance, obviously, and will go on to become WCW. Also on this day in wrestling history, in the year 2000, ECW champion Mike Awesome, God rest his soul, signed with World Championship Wrestling. Now, the reason this is important is it began a chain of events that saw Awesome become public enemy number one in the eyes of a lot of fans associated with ECW, because he eventually lost the title to Taz a few weeks after his WCW debut. And it was interesting because it marked a totally unique occurrence when a WCW contracted wrestler faced a WWE contracted wrestler in Taz, because he had signed with WWE at the time, on an ECW show. Interesting, though, also in 2001 in Tokyo at the Tokyo Dome, Scott Norton lost the IWGP Heavyweight Championship to Kazuki Fujita. And also in 2011 at the CZW Best of the Best tournament in Philadelphia, Adam Cole, baby, defeated Sami Callihan in the finals of the tournament in 2011. All this good stuff, folks, happening on April 9th, on this day in pro wrestling history. Pat, what do you want to close the show out with tonight?
Well, it's interesting you mentioned the best of the best in CZW, man, because every time I hear CZW and I hear best of the best, I think of the late, great Trent Acid. Trent Acid was a guy who my cousin and I, Jimbo, Sean, the whole Mike Minervini, the whole wrestling crew, we all used to remember Trent Acid, and Trent Acid was so cool with all of us and was a guy that I think was way ahead of his time and influenced a lot of the guys now. To anybody out there who's listening to this show, who's watching this show, look up Trent Acid if you haven't, if you're not familiar with his work. A guy that definitely would have been a huge star nowadays and somebody that's sorely missed. Just want to send a couple of shout outs to my sponsors. I'm actually drinking this wine here today. It's from Coppinger Farms. It's a wine called Dirty Blonde. It's made by Christopher Michael Coppinger over at Coppinger Farms. You might want to check it out. It's www.coppingerfarms.com.
It's working?
Yeah, and it's working. It's about the only thing working there. And you get 30% off with a special code, #YeahJerkOff. That's #YeahJerkOff for the special 30% off. And you definitely want to try Dirty Blonde here from Coppinger Farms. Also want to shout out a special shout out to my doctor, Dr. Scum, always keeping me in shape, keeping me limber. He's also a bit of a guru to me as well. And a major shout out to Dr. Scum. I'd also like to send a shout out as well to my other sponsor, Hippenstock Farms. Dr. John J. Hippenstock out there at Hippenstock Farms, making the finest organic meals for me, the finest vegan meals for me. Obviously, you have to be able to fuel a man this handsome with top quality organic vegan food. My kids are busy training today. They're in their Easter training, their shoot fight training. Be looking out for them soon as an intergender tag team. And, they're probably going to be your favorites before long because obviously if they have a quarter of the charisma that I have, it's only a matter of time before they're at the top. You know what I'm saying? It. But thank you so much. And also, big shout out to Plan B as well. Thank you so much to my friends at Plan B. You guys are fantastic. And I also want to send a shout out as well to the Children's Aid Society. Thank you so much. Guys, keep on keeping on. Life's a garden. Dig it. You're going to do your whole political spiel, so I'm going to get the fuck out of here. It's Easter, and happy Easter.
Oh, now you care about Easter. Oh, now you care about the Lord that has risen. Now
man, I care about food, okay? And I want to fucking eat. And I can smell a lot of great food here at, the Rivera penthouse. So I'm very, very excited to go feast on.
Well, folks, a special programming note again. We do wish well to the departed Patrick Vincent Rivera, the PBR superstar, as he has now left Working the Marks, and I'm so happy to welcome my new co-host.
We wish him well on all his future endeavors.
Yes, well, and it's a pleasure to collaborate with my new co-host now, the VCR superstar Vincent Kennedy Rivera. That's Kennedy with a C. So happy Easter to you, brother. God bless you. And
I'm sorry. By the way, I just want to say I'm sorry for the caption under there. It says Kennedy with C. That was written by a foreigner. They're not that good with the English language, so that's what they did. And no offense to foreigners out there. Sure. I love Foreigner. They're one of my favorite bands ever. So I just hope that everybody has a great weekend today.
Love you, VCR. Welcome to the show. VCR.
I'm going to pretend that I'm frozen, but I'm not.
Okay. Folks, he is VCR, New Jersey's premier wrestling analyst, our new co-host here on Working the Marks. Again, as we bid farewell to Patrick Vincent Rivera, PBR superstar, we wish him well in his future endeavors. VCR, we'll see you next week here. And folks, again, we want to thank you for joining us here on Famcast Media. Shout out to our amazing executive producer, Dee Rotten, for all the good stuff that he does during the week, obviously with our reels and making sure that our show goes off smoothly as it always does every week. Obviously, check out the show on YouTube, also on Facebook. Follow us on Instagram and Twitter. And folks, as a reminder, tomorrow night, there's a special primetime edition of Real Talk with Fernando Uribe via Jersey First TV. I will have two guests on at the same time. I will have the president of the Latinas United for Political Empowerment Fund. It's a PAC here in the state of New Jersey, and their president, Yvette Mosquera, as well as the the executive director of the League of Women Voters of New Jersey. Obviously, a lot to talk about during this election season here in the Garden State, as all 120 legislative seats are up for grabs this November. We'll have a lot to talk about voter engagement, and obviously talking about what matters in today's political climate. Catch it tomorrow night, folks, on Jersey First TV via YouTube, also on Facebook Live at a special start time of 8 p.m. prime time. Once again, folks, Real Talk with Fernando Uribe comes to you live from Jersey First TV tomorrow night. Folks, again, I can't thank you enough for joining us here. Sharing is caring. Share the episodes and make sure that you share Working the Marks with all of your friends who love pro wrestling, who love sports entertainment. No matter, listen, if it's about wrestling, we're talk about here every single week on Working the Marks, folks. Have a great rest of your Easter weekend. For everyone that's off from school or have any holidays, enjoy. Please party responsibly. We'll see you next Sunday here, courtesy of Famcast Media, for the latest edition of Working the Marks. I am Fernando Uribe, New Jersey's premier award-winning journalist, and we'll see you next time, folks, here on Working the Marks.
Famcast Media.